What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be giving my boy Anthony a nice textured crop and mid fade on the sides and get him super fresh. Let's get it. Haircuts tutorials that we were doing the tour of my station. Alright, first things first, we're going to be starting with the top today. I haven't cut his hair in a while, so I want to make sure I know what I'm fading into. We're not going to be cutting too much length off today. It's just mainly shaping it up and adding a little bit of texture. First step here, I'm going to be going ahead and doing a horseshoe section so I can separate the top from the sides. And I'm going to be starting today doing my graduation, as you guys will see here in a minute. So that I can understand what I'm fading into. I can make sure we're getting a nice square shape, and that way I also know where my weight line is. As you guys can see here, I'm just separating, kind of starting at the cowlick and going to the front of the head, creating a nice clean horseshoe section, going with the natural growth of the hair. That is very important, especially in a haircut like this where you want the hair to sit naturally in its natural growth pattern. You want to make sure that you are sectioning with the natural growth pattern and you're not trying to cut any of the hair in a direction that it doesn't want to sit in. And you guys can see here, I'm trying to make this my section, and if I don't like it, I redo it. It's more than worth the extra 2-3 seconds that it may take you in order to get that clean section over using a messy section. Alright, now like I said, we're starting with the graduation around the bridal ridge. We're not going to be cutting too much off, as you guys are going to see. I just want to make sure that I have a nice clean weight line to blend into, and especially because his last haircut was more of a low fade, we're going for something a little bit higher, closer to a mid fade today. So I want to bring up that weight line a little bit as well. As we're moving towards the back here, as you guys are gonna see, I'm dropping it a little bit more, and this is because, one, we're doing a drop fade because I like keeping a bit of weight in the back around the crown area. This just makes this, flow a little bit nicer with the head shape. And the way that I do this, the amount of drop that it has on each client is gonna be a little bit different and a lot more contoured to the person's head. Because the thing with haircutting, and especially with doing, creating shapes, is it's going to be a little bit different on different head shapes, because there are certain things that you want to, accent and show off, and there are certain things you want to hide or, you know, uh, not really bring to attention. So as you guys can see here, I'm not cutting too much. I'm just bringing up the weight line. And, this is, again, just so that I have a nice weight line to blend into, and I kind of know where my fade is going to end. Now that that is done, I actually did the other side as well. I just couldn't get the angle properly on the camera, so I just wanted to show you guys that side. Now for the top here, like I said in the beginning, we're not really looking to cut too much off. We're going to start with a clean profile section like you guys saw there. I didn't like my original section, so I went ahead and redid it. And for the most part here, we're just going to be doing point cutting, just so that as we're cutting a little bit of that length, we're also adding in some texture and eliminating cutting lines. And one thing that I did on this haircut that I pretty much never do is I actually, on the two different sides of the head on the top, I used two basically different methods to achieve a square shape, and you guys will see the very first method is going with vertical sections and going from section 2 into 1, 3 into 2, as you guys will see, and using that middle profile guide as my guide throughout the whole process. Now this method is, I would say, probably the best way to achieve a square shape, and that is because you are very heavily um, minimizing any cutting lines that are going to happen, and you're going to be able to, your cross-checking is going to be very minimal when you're doing this method, but it is a little bit more time consuming. And on the other side, as you guys are going to see, I'll do a more traditional uh, profile section that we did, plus doing horizontal sections from back to front. Now that is the most, I would say, that is the fastest way to achieve a square shape, but it does call for some cross-checking. So I would say ultimately it ends up being around the same. I would say that the horizontal sections are a little bit easier, um, but I think everybody should give the vertical section a method a try as well. And you guys will see, I'm just finishing up here. I believe the next section, there isn't really much to cut because it looks like his last haircut, it was a little bit more round than it was square. So uh, there's not going to be too much to cut anyway. And I will cross check here as well. As you guys can tell here, I'm just cross-checking. Now, cross-checking, a lot of people think it's the vertical sections. It's the opposite of whatever section you did your original cutting in. So because I did the main, cutting of the length in vertical sections, cross-checking is just going to be in a horizontal section. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was a little bit of over direction. So I did have to cut a couple pieces off because I was over directing a little bit more than I wanted to along the, more further side of the right side of his head. Now getting started on the left side, it's gonna start very similar to the other side, but we're gonna be doing horizontal sections. I just sectioned back the middle profile guide that we did, so I have that as a guide. And if you guys notice, I sprayed his hair again because I realized it was getting dry again. You guys want to make sure you're constantly moisturizing the hair and making sure that it's wet, especially throughout your haircut, because if you're cutting one side while it's completely wet and another side while it's half dry, your haircut is not going to turn out even because there's different levels of tension on the hair and different levels of moisture. So again, back to the cut itself, you guys can tell this is a little bit faster than the way we did the other side, and I would say maybe a little bit of an easier way to visualize a square shape. So I recommend you guys try both and see which one you like better. All right, so here he didn't want his fringe to be any shorter. I'm really just cutting, the strands that are sticking out that are not really sitting very nicely. And we're going into texturize the hair here. Normally, and what I would usually recommend is to do the texturizing once the hair is dry. It's just I was running a little bit behind here, especially with the recording. If you're a barber and you recorded a haircut, then you know that sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you originally planned. So when I am running a little bit behind, I do put in the texture wet sometimes, but I do usually recommend. And what I usually do is I wait till the hair is dry until I add in the texture. Now for the fun part. Today, we're going to be giving Anthony here a mid fade, and we're going to be starting here with our number 2 guard, as you guys can see. And if you guys can see, I'm flicking into that weight line that we created, and you guys can tell it's blending very seamlessly, and it's helping me kind of understand the shape that I'm creating. And you guys saw it, like as it drops in the back, it contours the shape of his head really nicely. So I'm actually very happy with where our weight line ended up being. All right, now that we have done our debulking, I'm just taking my Babyliss Black FX and setting my bald line. Two things you guys are going to notice here as you watch me set the bald line. First is that I'm going to be curving it slightly towards the front. This is to keep the C cup a little bit darker when I go in with the lineup. And the second thing you guys will see is that I drop the bald line in the back as we're doing a little bit of a drop fade here to contour the shape of his head a little bit better. Uh, I will say that almost all of my fades, except some of the high fades that I do, most, if not all, of my mid fades and my low fades are drop fades, and that's just because I enjoy the way it looks, and I think I'm able to contour the head shapes a little bit better. Now that we've done our bald line, I actually like to use the shaver last, so you guys will see that in the next few clips. But I like to come here. We're going to be doing a fading down technique. So I'm using my 1.5 guard now, going below what we went with our number 2 guard. The reason I like fading down is I find it's a little bit more efficient and I don't need to detail as much. I'm able to just go straight down and, do it that way, where I don't have to set in guidelines and, pick up the same guards or the same tool, too many times and have some I would call maybe wasted movements. And especially for Anthony's hair here, I've cut his hair before and he has fairly easy hair to fade, so I have no problem coming here and doing a nice fade down technique today. Continuing with fading down, I grabbed my 1 guard here, going just under what we went with our number 1.5. You guys will see here, especially when I close that 1 guard, you guys will see that the fade really starts coming together. And I mean, it might seem repetitive, the steps, but it's effective, it works, and it gives some really, really clean fades. So I'm actually curious to know if you've ever tried fading down, or if you do fade down. Comment down below and just generally let me know what system you guys are currently using in terms of your fading. I will be dropping more tutorials in the future, and I'm going to be trying out different systems, doing the tutorials and showing you guys different ways to do it, because as you guys know, when it comes to barbering and when it comes to art in general, there are 1,000 ways to achieve the same result. So I love trying out new systems, and this fading down technique I found was one that I stuck to for a long time. It was the only thing I used. Now I switch it up a little bit more, but I like to change it around every now and then, depending especially on the hair type. All right, so now as you guys saw, I just picked up my half guard and I'm doing kind of pretty exaggerated flicks. I mean, it might look to you guys that I'm going like all the way up with the half guard, but I'm actually flicking it. If you look at it from the side, which for the next tutorial maybe I'll get a second camera angle, but I'm just flicking out here, trying not to go super high, because 1, you don't want to set in any new guidelines, and 2, you don't want to have to end up blending back up. So I'm just keeping it pretty low. Find that this step is where you really see the fades start to come together, especially when you close that half guard. You really start to see the contrast, and it kind of is a cool transitionary period right before you put your you blend out the bald line. All right, so I know you're probably confused. The bottom line is blended, the shaver is already done, and it looks like I'm already lining up the C cup here. And to be honest with you guys, it looks like the camera stopped recording at the end of the last clip and completely missed that entire part. I do apologize. I even considered not uploading this video, but I still think that it brought value in terms of the scissor work on the top and most of the fade. So I still wanted to put this one out for you guys, and I promise in the next tutorial I'm going to make sure that everything is completely there and that the camera is recording at all times. just a rookie mistake, I guess. So I do apologize about that. But to continue with the rest of the tutorial, as you guys can see, I'm coming here with my scissor over comb, and some people would just go straight in with clipper over comb here. I personally find that while I like using clipper over comb when there's a lot more bulk, I find that I have a lot more control with my scissors, and that's just kind of since I started cutting, I guess. I'm not sure if it's just, you know, I guess maybe it's personal preference to a certain extent, but I do find that I have a lot more control with my scissors. Sometimes it might take longer than if I just used clipper over comb, but I find that it helps me get a softer finish and a little bit more control over how much I'm cutting and exactly where I'm cutting. So now I just took out the thinning shears, just going at the very ends of the hair, softening up that ridge just a little bit. I actually, in a lot of my cuts, especially when I do crops, I like there to be, you know, a bit of bulk at the parietal ridge and even see a little bit of that weight line. Uh, it's just that, you know, most clients don't like that weight line to be super harsh, and obviously at the end of the day you want to make sure that your daily client is going out happy. So this is the finished cut here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, if you found some value in the video, press the like button, subscribe, press the bell, and share this with anyone that you think would enjoy. Don't forget to comment your thoughts down below. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.